Elon Musk is sending you a secret signal. You have 5 minutes to open it. God says, this message is only for you, and it is reaching you at a moment when your spirit has been quietly asking for confirmation, reassurance, and direction. There are moments in life when heaven speaks not through noise, but through timing, and this is one of those moments. God says you are not here by accident, and you are not reading these words by chance. Something within you has been stirred, and that stirring is not fear, it is awareness. God says your life is entering a phase where clarity begins to replace confusion, and peace begins to rise where heaviness once lived. You have wondered if anyone truly sees the effort you've made, the silent endurance, the nights you stayed strong when no one knew how tired you were. God says He has seen every step, every tear, every prayer whispered when words were hard to find. God says the idea of a signal is not about a device, a message, or a person, it is about alignment. Just as innovators and builders recognize patterns before others do, you are being invited to recognize a moment of alignment in your own life. God says this is a season of awareness. Something is opening, not in the sky, not on a screen, but within your understanding. You are beginning to see yourself differently. You are starting to realize that what you once thought was delay was actually preparation. God says nothing about your journey has been wasted. Every experience has shaped your discernment, strengthened your patience, and refined your faith. God says you are safe. Let that truth settle deeply into your heart. You are not exposed, you are not forgotten, and you are not standing alone. Even when uncertainty tried to speak louder than hope, God remained present. God says trust does not mean knowing every detail, it means resting in the assurance that you are held, guided, and protected even when the path feels unclear. You have been walking forward even when answers were incomplete, and that courage matters more than you realize. God says there is a shift happening in how you see your future. You are no longer driven by fear of loss, but by a growing sense of purpose. You are beginning to understand that your life is not meant to shrink or hide. God says you were created with intention, with vision, and with the ability to influence through integrity and wisdom. The world may celebrate loud success, but God celebrates quiet faithfulness. And you have been faithful in ways no one applauded, but heaven noticed. God says pray not because something terrible is coming, but because something meaningful is unfolding. Prayer is not a shield against doom, it is a doorway into peace. When you pray, you align your heart with truth, not anxiety. God says release the urgency that comes from fear, and embrace the urgency that comes from purpose. There is a difference. One drains you. The other strengthens you. God says you may have felt pressure lately, as if time is moving faster and decisions matter more. This is not meant to overwhelm you. It is meant to awaken discernment. God says slow your heart even when life feels fast. Listen before reacting. Trust before assuming. You are being taught to move with wisdom rather than impulse. That lesson will protect you more than you know. God says there are doors that will open not because you forced them, but because you were ready. Readiness is not about perfection. It is about humility, learning, and faith. You have grown. Even when you doubted yourself, growth was happening. Even when you felt stuck, roots were forming. God says what grows unseen often supports what later becomes visible. God says let go of the belief that you must constantly prove your worth. You do not need to earn love, safety, or belonging. Those were never conditional. God says rest in who you are becoming, not in who you think you should have already been. Life is not behind schedule. You are exactly where learning meets transformation. God says trust me with what you cannot control. Release the need to monitor every outcome. Peace comes when you do your part and allow God to do His. You are not meant to carry everything alone. God says place your worries into prayer, not because prayer magically removes challenges, but because it reminds you that you are supported through them. God says you will recognize the next step when it comes, not because it shouts, but because it brings calm. True direction does not create chaos in your spirit. It brings clarity, even if the path requires courage. God says you are capable of that courage. You have already demonstrated it in ways you forgot to acknowledge. God says breathe. Let your shoulders relax. Let your thoughts settle. You are not running out of time. You are moving into alignment. Continue to trust. Continue to pray. Continue to walk with integrity. Nothing will go wrong with you. You are safe. You are guided. You are supported. And you are not alone. So take a slow breath and let your heart be still for a moment. This is not about fear, and it is not about pressure. This is about awakening. What is unfolding around you is not random, and it is not meant to confuse you. It is meant to remind you that your life carries meaning far beyond what your eyes can currently see. When the message speaks of powerful names and large decisions, understand it in the spiritual sense. It is a symbol of influence, movement, and moments that shift direction. God often uses symbols to wake the soul, not to bind it to anxiety. God says this message is touching a place inside you that has been quiet for too long. There is a part of you that knows you were created for more than repetition, more than waiting, more than surviving. You have questioned your purpose in silence, wondering if your steps matter in a world that seems so loud and fast. Heaven has seen those thoughts. Heaven has heard the prayers you whispered when no one else was listening. This is reassurance, not alarm. God says do not misunderstand urgency as threat. Urgency in the spirit is love calling you forward. It is like a light turning on in a dark room, not to scare you, but to help you see where you are standing. You are not late. You are not forgotten. You are being gently but firmly reminded that now is a season to be attentive, to be aware, to choose faith over doubt. You are safe. Let that truth settle deeply in your chest. You are protected in ways you cannot measure. Even when your mind runs ahead with questions, even when your heart feels tired, God remains steady. Nothing is about to collapse around you. Nothing is being taken from you without purpose. What is happening is alignment. What is happening is preparation. God says that influence is not only held by those whose names are known across the world. Influence also lives in obedience, in courage, in quiet decisions made when no one is watching. Sometimes a single choice made in faith carries more weight in the spiritual realm than decisions that shake markets or headlines. You are being invited to recognize the power of your own yes. There have been moments when you felt small, as if your life was moving while the world rushed past you. God says that was not wasted time. That was forming time. That was strengthening your roots so that when movement comes, you will not be shaken. Trees that grow too fast cannot stand in strong winds, but trees with deep roots remain. This message is not telling you to chase anyone or anything. It is telling you to listen. Listen to the nudges in your spirit. Listen to the peace that comes when you pray. Listen to the discomfort that shows you where change is needed. God does not shout to control you, He speaks to guide you. God says trust me even when the full picture is not clear. Faith has never required full visibility, only willingness. You do not need to understand every step ahead. You only need to take the step that is in front of you with honesty and prayer. I will meet you there. There is reassurance for your fears and rest for your anxiety. The future is not rushing at you to harm you. It is unfolding to grow you. What feels intense now will soon feel purposeful. What feels uncertain now will later feel like confirmation that God was leading all along. Do not ignore your inner stirring, but also do not panic. Sit with God. Pray simply. Speak honestly. You do not need special words. You do not need perfection. A sincere heart is enough. God already knows what you need before you ask. God says you are not alone in this moment. Even when people do not understand your journey, heaven understands it fully. Even when answers seem delayed, they are not denied. Timing is part of protection. So rest in this truth again, God will be with you. Nothing will go wrong outside of His care. You are safe. Trust Him. Pray. Move forward gently, wisely, and without fear. What is coming is not meant to break you. It is meant to shape you, strengthen you, and remind you that your life matters deeply, right here, right now. And as this message continues, let your heart slow down and your breath become steady, because this is not about fear, pressure, or force. This is about awareness, timing, and alignment. The name you read earlier is not meant to pull your mind outward toward a person, a company, or a headline. It is meant to draw your attention inward, to the place where decisions are formed long before they appear in the world. This message is speaking to that inner place where clarity is born. God says the world often uses famous names, powerful figures, and great decisions as symbols, mirrors reflecting something much closer to you than you realize. What feels urgent is not because something is chasing you, but because something within you is ready to rise. You have reached a moment where your thoughts, your discipline, your patience, and your faith are being quietly examined. Not judged, not threatened, but observed with care, like a gardener watching a seed finally break the surface of the soil. God says you have underestimated how closely your daily choices are shaping your future. Every small decision you thought did not matter has been adding weight, direction, and momentum. This is why your spirit feels alert right now. This is why you were drawn to keep reading. It is not because something terrible will happen if you stop, but because something meaningful can happen if you listen. God will be with you, rest assured. Nothing will go wrong with you. You are safe. These words are not decoration, they are grounding. Let them settle into you. Safety does not mean nothing changes. Safety means that change will not destroy you. It means you are protected while you grow, while you let go of habits that no longer fit, while you step into responsibilities you once avoided because you felt unready. God says there is a decision approaching that asks for honesty rather than speed. The world praises quick moves, bold announcements, dramatic leaps. But your path right now asks for stillness first. It asks you to listen before you speak, to observe before you act. You are being invited to align your inner values with your outer actions so that when you do move, you move with peace rather than panic. God says you have prayed for clarity, and clarity is coming, but not as a loud voice or shocking sign. It will arrive as a quiet knowing. A sense of "this feels right" that cannot be fully explained to others. Do not dismiss that feeling just because it is calm. Calm is not weakness. Calm is strength that has learned to trust itself. God says the pressure you have felt recently is not a warning, it is compression. Just as coal becomes something more under pressure, your character has been forming quietly. You have learned patience through waiting, humility through uncertainty, and resilience through moments when no one else understood what you were carrying. None of that was wasted. God says trust Him and pray to Him, not as a ritual of fear, but as a conversation of confidence. Speak honestly. Say what you are tired of. Say what you are hoping for. Say what you are afraid to admit. Prayer is not about perfect words, it is about an open heart. And an open heart is something God can guide. God says there will be voices around you that rush you, distract you, or try to define your worth by outcomes alone. Do not let those voices drown out the one that reminds you who you are even before results appear. You are not valuable because of what you produce. You are valuable because you exist with purpose. God says something new is forming in your thinking. You may notice your priorities subtly shifting. Things that once excited you may feel less important. Things you once avoided may now feel necessary. This is not confusion, this is refinement. You are being prepared to handle more responsibility with wisdom rather than ego. God will be with you as you navigate this season. Rest assured, nothing will go wrong with you. Even mistakes will teach rather than harm you. Even delays will protect you from rushing into what you are not yet meant to carry. You are safe, even when the path feels unfamiliar. God says remember this, urgency does not always mean emergency. Sometimes urgency is simply an invitation to pay attention. To stop scrolling past your own life. To notice what keeps returning to your thoughts. To ask yourself why certain ideas, questions, or desires will not leave you alone. Those repetitions are clues. God says do not idolize outcomes or people. Learn from them, yes, but do not hand them the authority that belongs to your conscience and your faith. The most important decisions in your life will not be made by others for you. They will be shaped by how well you listen to wisdom, how deeply you stay rooted in truth, and how bravely you act when the time is right. God says the coming days are about alignment, not spectacle. About inner order, not outer noise. About choosing integrity when no one is watching. These quiet victories will matter more than any public recognition. God says breathe. Slow down. You are not late. You are not forgotten. You are exactly where you need to be to learn what you must learn next. Continue to trust. Continue to pray. Continue to act with intention. God will be with you. Rest assured. Nothing will go wrong with you. You are safe. And as this message gently comes to a pause, let it leave you not anxious, but steady. Not pressured, but clear. Not fearful, but grounded in the knowledge that you are guided, protected, and capable of moving forward with wisdom and peace. So hear this gently, and let it settle into your spirit without fear. What is unfolding is not about fame, power, or names as the world defines them, but about alignment, timing, and purpose. Sometimes God uses familiar names and symbols that catch your attention so your heart will pause long enough to listen. This message is not telling you that you must chase anyone, impress anyone, or wait for validation from the world. It is reminding you that when God decides to shift your season, He does it in ways that make you stop scrolling, stop doubting, and stop telling yourself that nothing important could ever involve you. God says this moment is about preparation. You have been asking quietly, sometimes with words and sometimes only with tears, when will something change? When will my life move forward? And God answers by saying that movement begins inside you before it is ever seen outside you. The urgency you feel is not panic, it is awakening. It is your spirit recognizing that you are standing at the edge of a new chapter, one that will require courage, clarity, and trust rather than fear. God says you are not late. You have not missed anything. Even the delays you regret were protection. Even the doors that closed without explanation were mercy. There were paths you wanted so badly that would have cost you your peace, and God stepped in quietly and said no, even when you did not understand. Now He says the season of confusion is lifting. What once felt hidden will begin to make sense. What once felt random will reveal a pattern. You will start to see how every step, even the painful ones, was shaping you to carry something greater without losing yourself. God says stop shrinking your expectations because of past disappointments. Stop telling yourself that big things are for other people. You have trained your heart to expect less just to avoid being hurt again, but God says you were never created to live small just to feel safe. You were created to live anchored, rooted, and unshaken. Safety does not come from avoiding purpose, it comes from trusting the one who called you into it. God says there are ideas stirring in you that you have not spoken out loud because you are afraid they sound unrealistic. You worry people will laugh, doubt you, or misunderstand you. But God says those ideas did not come from fear, and they did not come from ego. They came from inspiration. They came from a place deeper than logic. And just because you cannot see the entire path does not mean it is not real. Faith was never about seeing everything, it was about moving with what you are given. God says do not compare your beginning to someone else's middle. You are seeing results without seeing the years of discipline, mistakes, prayer, and endurance behind them. Your story is unfolding at the right pace for your soul. If it came faster, it would break you. If it came later, you would lose heart. God knows exactly when you are ready, even when you think you are not. God says there is a shift happening in how you see yourself. For a long time you have defined yourself by what you lack, by what went wrong, by what others said you were not. But now God is rewriting that inner narrative. You will begin to see yourself as capable again. You will begin to trust your voice again. You will begin to believe that your presence matters, that your ideas matter, that your obedience matters. God says release the pressure to prove anything. You do not need to convince anyone of your worth. You do not need to explain your calling to people who are not meant to walk with you. The right connections will not require performance. They will recognize alignment. The right opportunities will not drain you, they will energize you. The right doors will open without you having to force them. God says guard your heart in this season. Not because something bad is coming, but because something valuable is growing. You do not expose seeds before they are ready for the light. You nurture them quietly. You water them consistently. You protect them from voices that would trample what they do not understand. Silence right now is not loneliness, it is incubation. God says trust me with the timing. You want clarity now, confirmation now, results now. But God says if I showed you everything at once, you would either rush ahead or run away. I reveal things in layers so your faith can stretch without tearing. What you need for today, you already have. What you need for tomorrow will come when tomorrow arrives. God says rest in this truth, nothing will go wrong with you. You are safe. You are covered. You are guided. Even when you make mistakes, even when you hesitate, even when you feel unsure, God is not pacing heaven in frustration. He is walking with you patiently, correcting your steps gently, and strengthening you quietly. God says prayer is not your last option, it is your power source. When you pray, you are not begging for attention. You are aligning your heart with divine wisdom. Even short prayers whispered in exhaustion are heard. Even silent